Okay, good afternoon to anyone who is on board literally right now, and anyone else who may view the video at a later point in time, since I am officially recording this now. I'm gonna jump to OneNote and just do problems 3 and 4. Problem 3 asks which equation represents the graph. So this is our graph. Now notice the line is going in this direction as opposed to in this direction. Or let me put that in blue. If we were going in this direction, it'd be positive x, or think of it as y equals positive x plus or minus some number, whereas this is going in this direction. So as x gets bigger, y gets smaller, x gets bigger. As x moves to the right, y goes down. As x goes further to the right, y goes further down, down, down. So it's negative. It's y equals negative x, or technically y equals negative some number times x plus or minus some other number. And by the way, because this is -1, that's the y-intercept, where x is 0, y equals -1. All of these have -1, but again, we can wipe out the ones that are positive x. So I'm going to cross that out, and we're going to be left with either -1/2 x minus 1 or -2x minus 1. The y-intercept's the same in both cases, so we're just looking at this, which is the slope. So that's actually y equals mx plus b, and we know that it's, well, negative something m, x minus 1, b is -1, the y-intercept, but is it -1/2 or is it -2? Well, if it's -1/2, that would indicate, since it's slope again, which we've been talking about a lot, rise over run, that would mean that if we go down 1 and then we'd go over 2, well, over here from -1 down 1 would be -2, and over 2 would be like over here from 0 to 1 to 2. That's not a value there. We're not on that point, so that doesn't make sense. -2 would be we go down 2 and then over 1, because that's really just as we have -1/2, that's really -2 over 1. So we went over 2 from 0 to 1, pardon me, from 0 to 1 to 2, and then over 1. So let's see if that makes sense. And plug it in just for good measure. So if I have x equals 1, x equals 1, which we'll just substitute, sorry, y equals -2 times 1 minus 1. Well, negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. So when x equals 1, we'd be at negative 3. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. We went down 2 and over 1. Down 2 and over 1. To the right 1 and then down 2. So the answer is this guy. B is also incorrect, but D is correct. And then for this one, number 4 asks, which statement describes the graph of y equals negative x plus 3 and y equals negative x plus 6? So the first one, A, asks if they intersect at points 3 and 6. That's the ordered pair of 3, 6. When x equals 3, what is, and then y equals 6. Does it intersect there, or are they parallel, meaning something like this? Or are they perpendicular, which means they meet at a 90-degree angle like that? Or if they intersect at x equals 6 and y equals 3. So let's just graph this. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So for this one, if this is also, both of them are in the form of y equals mx plus b, 6 is b, 6 is the y-intercept. So that means when x is 0, y equals 6. And then for this one, y equals negative x plus 3. Well, 3, the constant, the number by itself, that doesn't have any variable attached to it. That one is y-intercept of 3. So when x equals 0, y equals 3. Now, maybe I'll use blue for this one. Okay, so now negative x, that's just down 1 over 1. Down 1 over 1. So from negative 6 to negative 5 over 1 be the points 1 and 5. Down 1 to 4 and over 1. So that's 2 and 4. Down 1 and over 1. So it'd be 3 and 3. And then down 1 would be 4 and 2. Down 1 and over 1. So it'd be 5 and 1. And then down 1 and over 1, that'd be 6 and 0. Fudge it a little bit. Okay, so then you guys get the idea, but anyway, next one, the point is that's going to be the x-intercept at 6 and 0. 6 and 0. And then for this one, we're going to go down 1, so from 3 to 2 and over to 1. So 1 and 2, down 1, 2 and 1, down 1 and over 1, so 3 and 0. So, and that was supposed to be blue. Call that blue. And let's call that one green. Anyway, so on the green line, which is this, and on the blue line, they are both parallel. So pretty sure that's going to be the answer, but let's just double check. It didn't give us a hint like which statement or statements, but let's just be careful. They intersect at points 3, 6. Well, really, these never intersect at all. And it's pretty logical to conclude if they're parallel, they don't intersect. So we can honestly just use that logic to cancel out the whole thing. That's not true, and that's not true, and neither is the perpendicular thing, because that would be intersecting at a 90-degree angle, plus, oh, and the rule for that would be if the slopes were perpendicular. We already knew that they were parallel because the slopes are identical. That's negative times x, which is really -1 times x. That's -1 times x, so they're parallel. They'd be perpendicular if it was the reciprocal, the negative reciprocal. So if I had negative x, well, that's -1 times x, really. -1 times x. The negative reciprocal would be flipping this 1 upside down and then changing the sign. So -1x would be perpendicular to the one, well, y equals -1x plus or minus whatever would be perpendicular to y equals 1/2 x. So kind of similar to the other slope that we canceled out up in problem 3. And then the other thing is this point here, 6 and 3 on D, well, where x equals 6, y equals 0 over here. This one, we didn't plot it there, but it's obviously not the same thing. And then 3 and for problems A, 3 and 6, well, when x equals 3, y equals 0 for the green line for y equals -x plus 3. So that's the x-intercept there, which I've been scrambling this lately, but it'd be y equals 0. What is the value of x when y equals 0? Well, for the green line, x equals 3, y equals 0. That's the x-intercept. And for the blue line, when x equals 6, y equals 0. So the answer is B as in Bravo. And again, when I see anyone who was on here, that'll count as your attendance for the week. I hope everyone is doing really, really well. You guys are great kids. I'm trying to keep you motivated to the best of my ability. I know it's a little aspirational, but I want to instill to the best of my ability some love of math, if that's at all possible. Thank you, and talk to some of you either later this week or next week.